There is something far more terrifying than ghosts or monsters lurking in the shadows. It is the presence of another human being who refuses to let you go. Imagine this. You come home late at night. The street's empty. The world quiet. You lock your doors, thinking you are safe. But then you hear a faint creak on the stairs, the sound of a window sliding open, a whisper of footsteps moving closer. It is not your imagination. Someone is inside. And the most horrifying part, it is not a stranger from nowhere. It is someone you once trusted. A date who followed you home. A classmate who never stopped watching. A lover who turned into an obsession. These are not just stories. They are true accounts of stalkers whose dark desires shattered lives and left scars that never fade. Welcome to The Price Paid, where real nightmares are exposed and survival is never guaranteed. Subscribe now if you dare, because what you are about to hear will crawl under your skin and stay there long after the video ends. When I was 22, I thought I was ready to take dating seriously. I had been single for a while, and like most people my age, I downloaded a dating app hoping to meet someone decent. That is how I met Hunter. At first, he seemed harmless enough. We had our first date at a coffee shop, just a quick meeting to make sure he was real and not some catfish. It lasted less than an hour, and nothing about it set off alarms. Our second date was at a bar where we both had a few drinks. He was funny enough, talkative, and he seemed to be genuinely interested in me. By the third date, dinner at a local restaurant, I started noticing something odd about him. His personality did not seem to match his words. His smile looked forced. His eyes held onto me a little too long, and I could not shake the feeling that there was something slightly off. Still, I convinced myself it was nothing. We kissed once that night, the first and last time, and I told myself it meant things were moving in a normal direction. But the fourth date changed everything. We met for drinks again, and from the start, I sensed something wrong. He was restless, drinking too much, and his behavior crossed boundaries. He tried to kiss me multiple times at the bar in front of strangers, ignoring my discomfort. I politely turned him down, saying I was tired and needed to leave. He paid the bill, and we walked out together. That was when he bluntly asked me to go home with him. I refused, and his persistence turned aggressive, insisting I should let him come over, even dragging my excuse into it as if I owed him. I left disturbed, certain that I would not see him again. As I drove home, something chilled me even more. I noticed headlights in my mirror, the same car behind me after several turns. It was Hunter. He was following me. I texted him, asking directly if he was tailing me. His response, "Yes, I just want to make sure you get home safe." I called, but he ignored it. My stomach twisted with dread. I pulled over, demanded that he stop, and eventually he drove away. Still, my phone buzzed later that night with messages from him, pretending nothing was wrong, suggesting dinner at his place. I ignored them. By morning, he was already sending question marks, demanding answers. When I finally responded, gently telling him I did not feel we were a match, he snapped. The text turned angry, accusing me of leading him on, demanding I repay him for the money he had spent. I blocked him, thinking that would be the end. It was not. The calls started no caller ID, nonstop. I ignored them until they finally stopped. Then came the flowers on my porch with a card that said he was sorry and wanted another chance. That was when terror set in. He knew where I lived. I texted him one final warning. Do not contact me again, or I would get a restraining order. I blocked him everywhere and prayed it was finished. But the nightmare had just begun. One night, alone in my parents' house, I woke to faint noises downstairs. At first I thought it was a dream, but then I heard it clearly. A door opening. Panic surged through me. I crawled onto the floor, hiding under my bed, clutching my phone. I texted my family, whispering to 911. Footsteps came closer, slow and deliberate, until my bedroom door creaked open. I held my breath, my heart pounding so loud I feared it would give me away. I saw shadows moving. Then the dresser drawers opened. Someone was rifling through my things. A man's voice muttered curses, and I froze. I recognized that voice. It was Hunter. He sat on my bed. I saw his shoes through the gap of the bed skirt. I lay paralyzed, praying my phone would not vibrate. Minutes passed before he finally stood, muttered again, and left the room. I stayed under the bed until I heard the front door shut and footsteps fading away. Only then did I whisper into the phone that I was safe enough for police to come inside. Officers searched the house and found a large dining room window unlocked. It was clear someone had broken in, but there was no proof it was him. I had the texts, The following: the threats but not enough for charges. All I could do was file for a restraining order. From that night on, I never slept the same. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every car parked on the street felt suspicious. I was living in fear of a man I had known for only a month. That is the cruelest part of stalkers. They enter your life quickly, take over everything, and make you feel powerless. Even when the police say they cannot prove anything, you know the truth. You know the face of the monster who wants to haunt you. And worst of all, you know he might be just outside, waiting for the chance to come back. To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if I had not hidden under that bed. Would I have confronted him? Would he have hurt me? I will never know. And maybe that is the only reason I am still alive. The flowers on the porch were not a gift. The late night footsteps were not an accident. They were warnings. Proof that once someone decides to fixate on you, there is nowhere truly safe. I thought dating apps were supposed to bring people together. For me, it nearly brought death into my home. I was only 12 years old when this nightmare began. Still young enough to believe the world was mostly safe, but old enough to feel fear. It was the week of Halloween, my favorite time of year. After school, I stayed late with friends to help decorate for our school's haunted house. The reward was simple: pizza, music, and a sense of belonging. Among the group of kids helping was a boy named Chris. He seemed funny and harmless. We joked around while painting fake tombstones and hanging cobwebs. Not once did he give me any reason to be afraid. 2 weeks later, that changed. A group of girls from my grade ran up to me in the hallway, grinning like they were about to tell me the biggest secret ever. They whispered that I had a secret admirer who would text me that night. I tried to act indifferent, but inside I was curious. I only had one messaging app at the time, which I used mainly to contact my parents. That night, right before bed, a notification appeared. It was Chris. At first, I thought maybe he needed help with homework or something, but his message was strange.
This looks
Maya,
so nice.
I need to talk to
Yes,
you.
it does.
Concerned, I replied quickly.
Look how red she is.
After a long pause, he sent a wall of text. In it, he confessed he was in love with
I know,
me,
it's so funny.
that he had been trying to impress me with his soccer skills, that I drove him crazy, and that he wanted me to be his girlfriend. My stomach turned as I read it. We barely knew each other. It was like the playful kid from Halloween had disappeared and been replaced by someone else entirely. I tried to be gentle. I told him I only wanted to be friends. But instead of respecting that, he kept asking
I don't
why.
understand why this is
Each
such a
time I gave an
difficult
answer,
concept.
he pressed harder, as if he was entitled to me. Finally,
There
he
is
went
not
silent.
much we can do.
I thought that was the end. It was not. The next morning, his friends came up to me with teasing smirks, saying Chris wanted to kiss me and would do it, even if it meant cornering me. It was a threat disguised as a joke. My heart pounded. I went to my teacher, who told me to stay inside during recess and lunch, and to run back to the classroom if he came near me. That was not enough. I reported him to the principal. He said he would handle it. For a brief moment, I felt safe. But Chris knew where I lived. Everyone did. My house was right across from the school. One afternoon, just minutes after I got home, there was a knock at the door. I peeked through the window and saw someone ducking behind a parked car. My mom opened the door and found a note addressed to me. It said there was a surprise waiting under the Cadillac in our driveway. My mom went to check but found nothing. Days later, my brother's Cadillac stopped working. We never knew what Chris did to it, but my brother had to sell it. That was when I realized this was no schoolyard crush. This was an obsession. The harassment escalated. His friends pressured me to give him a chance. I caught him taking photos of me as I walked home, the faint click of a camera just enough to alert me. Every morning, I woke to messages from him. I can't wait to see you at school. I bet you'll look beautiful today. It was relentless, and it made me afraid to even step outside. He knew where I slept. He knew my routines. When I was called into the counselor's office, I thought it was finally over, that they were going to protect me. Instead, she smiled and told me boys will be boys, that they do crazy things when they're in love, and that I should feel flattered. I was 12 years old. I did not even fully understand what sexual harassment meant, but something about her words felt wrong. Later, telling my mom about it, I realized how wrong it really was. My mom was furious. She told the school, "What are you waiting for something bad to happen?" But the principal and counselor stayed silent. Chris faced no real punishment. He got away with everything. The final straw came on a weekend night. My parents were out shopping, and I was upstairs in my room watching a video. Suddenly, I heard a sound at my window. On the second floor, thud, 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 like small stones hitting glass. My heart raced. I pulled the curtain aside and looked down. Chris stood below, staring up at me. a handful of rocks ready to throw. He had found my bedroom window. He was saying something, but I did not wait to find out what. I backed away, checking that every door and window was locked. My phone buzzed with 4 messages from him. Why did you leave? I just want to talk. I'm sorry. All I wanted was a kiss. The last message read, you are not who I thought you were. Bye. I blocked him immediately. After that, the direct contact stopped, but I still had to see him at school for years, from 6th grade until senior year. Every time I saw his face, I felt that old panic. The last thing I heard about him was that he had been arrested for something unrelated. I did not care what for. All I cared about was that he was no longer free to show up under my window at night. Looking back now as an adult, the scariest part of the story is not just Chris. It is the adults who minimized his behavior, who told me to learn from it, as if being stalked was some rite of passage. I was a child being harassed by another child, and the people meant to protect me instead taught me that my fear was overreacting, that my boundaries did not matter. That counselor's words still echo in my head sometimes. You should feel flattered. It makes me sick. Chris taught me early what obsession looks like, how it grows when unchecked, how it feeds on silence and inaction. He also taught me to never ignore the small signs, because the small signs were there from the start. A secret admirer is not always a fairy tale. Sometimes it is a warning of the nightmare you're about to live. I was 23 when I met Emily. By that point in my life, I considered myself a quiet, somewhat awkward guy. I had always struggled socially, the kind of person who would rather stay home than go to crowded parties.
Oh my gosh.
My friends joked that I was a late bloomer, and in some ways they were right. I had lost my virginity late, and though I had built a career and even bought my own townhouse, I still carried that insecurity with me. So when Emily appeared on my screen while I was swiping through Tinder, I could not believe someone like her would actually match with me. She was pretty, confident, and seemed genuinely interested. We went out for dinner, and though I spent the evening worrying I was too awkward, she texted later to say she had a great time. For a lonely guy like me, that was everything. Our relationship moved quickly. After only a handful of dates, we were official. At first, it was bliss. The honeymoon phase made every message exciting, every phone call meaningful, but slowly, that excitement turned into something darker. Emily began texting constantly, expecting immediate replies. If I was slow to respond, she would flood my phone with question marks or even call repeatedly. I brushed it off as clinginess. When she demanded we share our locations, I agreed reluctantly. I told myself it was no big deal. I was wrong. Within weeks, she was using that shared location against me. If I was at my friend Phil's house, she wanted to know why. If I spent time with anyone but her, she accused me of ignoring her. One night, while I was hanging out with Phil and another friend, she showed up uninvited. Phil's mom led her downstairs, and she exploded in front of everyone, yelling about how I was ignoring her instead of answering her texts. I felt humiliated. Outside, in the street, she demanded to come home with me.
Please hurry.
I refused, and that night I texted her that I needed space. She did not take it well. The calls and texts began immediately. When I stopped answering, she came to my townhouse, pounding on the door, screaming insults so loudly the neighbors noticed. Eventually she left, but I knew this was no ordinary breakup. I told her over text that she was scaring me and I had to block her. She did not respond, but that silence felt more ominous than the yelling. A week later, after another night at Phil's, I came home to an empty townhouse. Hungry, I microwaved food and put on the TV. Then I heard Ida's sound from the dining room. At first I thought I imagined it, but then I saw it. A door that had been shut was now ajar. My stomach dropped. Grabbing a knife from the kitchen, I called 911, speaking loudly into the phone so that anyone inside would know I had called the police. An officer arrived quickly, and together we searched the entire house, attic to crawl space. No one was there. Relieved but unsettled, I locked up, convinced myself it was just paranoia, and went to bed. I wish that had been the end. Sometime after midnight, I woke to my phone buzzing with messages from an unknown number. It was Emily. She wrote long paragraphs about how sorry she was, how she needed to talk, how she still loved me. Then came a series of texts. Are you awake? Wake up. Wake up. She wrote it over and over 8 times in a row. My skin crawled as I read them. I replied once telling her this was insane and that I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. Seconds after sending the message, I heard a scream from inside my room. It came from the closet. The door burst open, and there she was. Emily, standing in the dark, clutching a knife. My body reacted before my brain did. I leapt out of bed and bolted for the door. She chased me, stabbing at the wooden door as I shoved it shut. The blade pierced through, inches from my side. I pressed my weight against the door, shaking, and in desperation I shouted, "Baby, I love you, please stop." The words tasted like poison, but they worked. She hesitated, breathing hard. Through the door, she cried, "That's all I wanted to hear. Why couldn't you just be honest with me?" I kept it talking while secretly dialing 911 again. I told her I was scared, that she needed to drop the knife. After a tense moment, I heard the clang of metal hitting the floor. Seizing my chance, I yanked the door open, tackled her to the ground, and held her down while shouting my address into the phone. She thrashed, screaming, as I kept her pinned until police arrived. When they did, they broke down the front door with such force the sound echoed through the house. They found me restraining her and quickly cuffed her. Emily was sobbing hysterically as they led her away. The sight of her being dragged out in handcuffs should have brought me relief, but instead I felt hollow. This was a woman I had once cared about, someone I had let into my home and into my life, and she had tried to kill me. The following months were consumed by legal proceedings. She faced serious charges and was ultimately imprisoned. I never wanted my name in any article or video about the case, so I stayed anonymous, but the ordeal scarred me. To this day, I cannot sleep without checking closets and locking my bedroom door. I replay that night in my head. Her scream, the sound of the knife stabbing through the wood, the moment I realized she'd been hiding in my closet while I ate dinner downstairs. She could have killed me, and the only thing that saved me was pretending to still love her. I sometimes wonder how long she had been inside the house that night. Had she been there while I was microwaving food, watching me from the shadows as I scrolled through movies? The thought chills me more than anything else. Stalkers like Emily are not strangers in the shadows. They are people you once held close, whose faces you once kissed, whose voices once made you smile. That is what makes their betrayal so devastating. They know your home, your habits, your weaknesses. And when love turns to obsession, they will use every piece of that knowledge against you. Emily's story is not just about her madness, it is about my blindness. I ignored the red flags because I was desperate for love, because I wanted to believe someone finally cared for me. But obsession is not love. Obsession is possession. And if you do not see it early, it may be too late when you finally realize what you let in. Every stalker story has its own unique details, but what makes them unforgettable is the way they linger long after the incidents end. For the people who lived through them, the nightmare does not stop when the police leave or when a restraining order is filed. The fear becomes a shadow that follows them everywhere. It crawls into their dreams, it whispers when they walk alone, it makes them look twice at every car that slows down near their street. This is the curse that stalkers leave behind. Ghosts that are not supernatural, but just as haunting. Hunter was only a man I met 4 times. 4 dates, less than 5 weeks. And yet he managed to dismantle my sense of safety. He followed me home, found out where I lived, entered my house in the dead of night, and left me trembling under my own bed. The police cannot prove it was him, but proof does not matter when you know the truth in your bones. From then on, I learned to live with paranoia. Locked doors meant nothing. Windows were potential entry points. Every creak in the house carried the possibility of him returning. Even after moving away, the fear remained. I sometimes wondered, did he still think about me? Did he still want to finish what he started? That uncertainty is the cruelest kind of prison. Chris was different. He was not a man I dated or loved. He was a boy, a classmate, someone who should have been harmless. Instead, he turned middle school into a battlefield of unwanted attention and harassment. What makes his story especially horrifying is the way adults failed me. My teacher's advice was to stay inside. My counselor's advice was to feel flattered. They dismissed my fear as childish exaggeration, teaching me that my boundaries did not matter. And so Chris kept escalating, following me, throwing rocks at my window, breaking into the privacy of my daily life with a persistence that felt suffocating. To this day, I still wonder how many pictures he took of me without my knowledge, how many hours he spent lurking outside my house, waiting for me to notice him. The idea that the people who were supposed to protect me allowed it to continue is almost as terrifying as Chris himself. He walked free, emboldened, while I carried the burden of fear. Emily's story is perhaps the most chilling, because she was someone I trusted with my heart. She was not a stranger or a classmate. She was my girlfriend, someone I shared my time, my home, and my affection with. The obsession grew gradually, masked as love. Her constant messages, her demand to share locations, her sudden appearance cell were signs I ignored because I wanted to believe in us. That ignorance nearly cost me my life. The night she emerged from my closet with a knife, screaming, stabbing the door, was the moment my world split in half. Love had become lethal. I survived only by lying, telling her I loved her just to calm her long enough to call the police. The memory of her voice still chills me. The betrayal of having the person I once kissed try to stab her way into my skin is something no one can ever erase. What unites these three stories is not just the stalkers themselves, but the aftermath. Fear became a permanent companion. Hunter made me doubt every shadow at night. Chris taught me that even childhood crushes can mutate into something predatory. Emily proved that obsession can live in the heart of someone you thought you loved. The trauma binds all three stories with invisible chains that never completely loosen. Moving houses, changing numbers, blocking accounts, it all helps. But it never truly frees you. Once you have been hunted, you never stop feeling like prey. There is also another theme running through these stories: disbelief. When victims first notice the red flags, they question themselves instead of the stalker. I thought Hunter was just drunk. I thought Chris was just immature. I thought Emily was just clingy. Each excuse delayed action, giving the stalker more time to tighten their grip. And when victims finally did speak up, too often the response from others was dismissal. The counselor told me to feel flattered. The police told me they had no proof. Friends told me I was overreacting. This disbelief isolates victims, making them feel even more trapped, even more alone. That isolation is exactly what stalkers thrive on. Stalking is not about romance. It is not about passion. It is about control, power, and the erasure of another person's freedom. Hunter wanted to control where I went. Chris wanted to control my choices at school. Emily wanted to control who I was allowed to love. All three of them believed their feelings justified invading my life, my home, my safety. And all three left scars that time cannot erase. For those who have never lived it, it may be easy to ask, why not just ignore them? Why not just move on? But victims know it is not that simple. Ignoring does not make the call stop. Moving does not erase the paranoia. Time does not undo the sound of footsteps outside your door at night. These experiences embed themselves into your very body, into your heartbeat, into the way you glance over your shoulder when walking home. You never again get to feel truly safe. That is the real horror. That is the real ghost that never leaves. The stories of Hunter, Chris, and Emily are not isolated cases. They are reminders of how obsession begins, how quickly it escalates, and how devastating it becomes when ignored. They are proof that stalkers can be anyone, a stranger from a dating app, a classmate in middle school, or the person lying next to you in bed. They can look like anyone, smile like anyone, and pretend to care like anyone. That is what makes them dangerous. Because by the time you realize the truth, by the time you see the monster behind the mask, it may already be too late. In the end, each of these stalkers became a ghost. Not the kind that haunts abandoned houses, but the kind that lives in the back of your mind, whispering at night, following you in your dreams, making you lock your doors twice even when you know it will not stop them. They are not here anymore, but their shadows remain. And once you have lived with those shadows, you never stop looking over your shoulder. When you look at the three stories we have just heard, Hunter, Chris, and Emily, they may seem very different on the surface. One was a stranger from a dating app, one was a middle school classmate, and one was a romantic partner. But underneath, they share the same terrifying truth. Stalking is not about love. It is about power, control, and the erasure of another person's freedom. And no matter what age you are, no matter how innocent the beginning might look, it can escalate into something that threatens your very life. Hunter showed how quickly a casual date can turn into something dangerous. 4 meetings with him were enough for him to learn my habits, follow me home, and invade my personal space. He turned a normal evening into a nightmare when I woke to the sound of drawers opening in my room. Chris demonstrated how obsession can start early, how even children can weaponize infatuation into harassment. He followed me, took pictures, threw rocks at my window, and made school feel like a prison. Emily revealed the darkest truth of all. Sometimes the person you love the most is the one who wants to hurt you the worst. She didn't just stalk me. She hid in my closet, armed with a knife, waiting for the moment to strike. What ties these stories together is not only the danger, but the aftermath. Victims do not just move on. They live with the constant awareness that someone out there wanted to erase their sense of safety. They live with paranoia that lingers for years. They replay footsteps in the night, voices under their breath, the sound of rocks hitting glass. Fear does not vanish. It becomes a companion, a shadow that refuses to leave. The lesson from these stories is simple, but powerful. Never ignore the red flags. Obsession does not start with a knife in the dark. It starts with the texts that come too often, the questions that cross boundaries, the coincidences of showing up where you are. It starts when someone refuses to respect your no. Every time you excuse it, every time you minimize it, you give them permission to go further. And when authorities or loved ones dismiss your fears, the danger multiplies. That is why speaking up, gathering evidence, and seeking help immediately can save lives. Even if people call you paranoid, even if they say you are overreacting, your safety is worth more than their disbelief. We tell these stories not just to frighten, but to prepare. Because the real monsters are not always hiding under the bed or lurking in the woods. Sometimes they're the people you thought you could trust, the ones who smile at you, who say they love you, who promise to protect you. But when love turns into obsession, it is no longer love, it is possession. And possession is deadly. This is the price people have paid, and it could happen to anyone. Protect yourself, listen to your instincts, and never underestimate the power of obsession. Welcome to The Price Paid. Subscribe now and join us as we continue to uncover the true horrors that walk among us.